because we are talking about women as property and from the time of Bhagavad Gita and how in a way demolished by what the arguments that Lord Krishna gave.
The animal that sits within us, that wants to fight, that wants to capture territory, is also the animal that wants to possess women. Arjuna chose to follow Krishna through the remaining 17 chapters, what came ahead. Krishna kept on demolishing Arjuna, and Arjuna stood through that. Shri Krishna was not speaking to everybody on the battlefield. Shri Krishna was speaking to one particular person who was revealing his insecurities, his doubts, his fears and attachments and all those things. If you're not Arjuna, the Gita is not for you.
Hello and welcome to another special episode here on NDTV. I am with writer, philosopher and somebody who calls himself a lifelong student of Gita. He's known for his interpretation of Gita, the Upanishads. Acharya Prashant ji, thank you so much for giving us the time and speaking to us again.
Glad.
I was just going through one of your book, and this is, ladies and gentlemen, the new edition of the Bhagavad Gita, and written by Acharya Prashant. And there are some very interesting thoughts that you have put in this book. And they are quite, though you quote Gita and then of course your interpretation, but they are quite, apparent in the current context as well. Mm-hmm. I want to start with one and then I will bring you to a question. I'm quoting from the page 60 of this book, which says, "What else does Arjuna believe in? Women as property?" It's a very patriarchal mindset when he says that, women should not be allowed to mingle with people from the so-called lower castes, as if women cannot decide on their own. As if Arjuna, this is what you are saying, as if Arjuna is the great and the final patriarch on whom rests the responsibility to protect women's chastity and minds. I want to probe you on this because you've written this. Isn't it very contextualized in today's terms as well? Men find it very hard to give up some sort of ownership of women even after they move on. Even after a relationship does not work out, even after the woman does not want to give you any sense of that ownership. Why do you think that happens, that you find it so difficult and you want to treat them as a property?
Yeah. You see, that's the reason why the Bhagavad Gita has an eternal relevance. Chapter 1 is what sets the tone for the remaining 17 chapters. But chapter 1 is also the least quoted chapter and least understood chapter and given the least importance. What Arjuna is saying is, I do not want to fight, and that is well known. Arjuna didn't want to fight. But not many people pay attention to the reasons he was quoting in support of his decision to not to fight. He's saying, if we fight here, the Kshatriyas, and we get killed, most of us, then the women, they will go and they will mingle and mate with those of the lower Varnas, and then their offsprings, they will be Varna Sankars. There is something called Pratilom Vivah, not in Vedant, not in real religion, but in popular culture.
Okay.
In popular culture. So Pratilom Vivaha is when somebody from the higher Varnas, a woman especially from the higher Varnas, marries somebody, a man particularly, from the lower Varnas. And then the offspring is a Varnasankar, and Varnasankars are looked down upon. And so Arjuna says, if a Varnasankar is born, then he will not be able to offer the right kind of prescribed sacrifices. He will not be able to participate in the holy rituals, especially when it comes to occasions like Shraddh, when the souls of our deceased ancestors have to be pleased with offerings. They'll not accept the offerings from a Varnasankar. So they'll go hungry and thirsty. As a result, a great curse will befall the kingdom. And that's the reason he's quoting to Krishna. That's chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. And from there, Krishna proceeds to annihilate these notions. That's the Bhagavad Gita. which means just as the message of the Gita is eternal, these tendencies inside us, the tendencies you asked of, why do we treat women as property? Why do men find it so difficult to really move on? Inwardly, they retain an idea of ownership even after the relationship is no more.
Yes.
Why does that happen? Because that's a basic animal instinct. That's got nothing to do with the current culture or civilization or something that has recently happened or something that is dependent on a period of time. That was there so many thousand years back, that is there today. And as long as we remain genetically who we are, that will remain. That's our animal tendency. That's our animal tendency to be territorial, to be opportunistic, to be possessive, and to really want to own, control the sexuality of the other person, the other gender, so that we can maximize our own pleasure. And not just maximize it, secure it. You know, when you own something, then there is a sense of security. This thing is with me not only today, it's also not going to go away tomorrow. So I own it, and I own it with security. And that's the reason why men have wanted to control women's sexuality since time eternal. That's there in the Bhagavad Gita. That's what we find happening today. You see, you look at the current conflict, what we have just witnessed, the unfortunate deaths and the Pahalgam massacre. You see the clear gender angle there, right? The terrorists come, and then they are sparing the women and shooting all the men, and they are telling the women, now you will be left alive to bear this agony all your life. Go and relay this back. And then the Operation 2 was codenamed Sindoor. You see the gender angle?
Yeah.
And then you also see how the daughter of the diplomat,
Yes.
who would appear on screens,
Foreign Secretary, yes.
the foreign secretary, how she was targeted. Probably the said diplomat also has sons. He is himself a man, even if he does not have sons. But the one chosen to be targeted was a woman, his daughter. So there is always a gender angle to all our animalistic primordial instincts, because that's how the animal in the jungle is. He wants to fight for territory, he wants to fight for women, and inwardly we are still animals.
No, but then what you picked up on, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri's daughter being trolled online and all that vicious, messaging around her, and no, but does that come from the insecurity of weak men? Because you treat women as somebody's property,
Yes.
and the only way you can hit back at that man, in your head you think, is to take away or to damage the property that man had, and hence the woman.
Yes. See, you said insecurity of weak men. That's rightly put, but there can be a more precise and refined way of putting it. That comes from the animal within us. If we say weak men, we say strong men, that does not really take care of the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we call as our weaknesses are actually our inheritances, what we have inherited from our jungle past. We are very recently emerging from the jungle, and whatever we are carrying forward from there today can be called as our weakness, and that includes our attitude towards the other gender. We want to own it, we want to suppress it. You look at war and you look at women, there has always been a relation. Genghis Khan, the biggest conqueror Asia has seen. India he spared, but the rest of Asia, almost all of it, plus parts of Europe, he totally ravished them.
Yeah.
He was not only a conqueror, he was also the biggest rapist the world has seen. So much so that a big proportion of the Asian population still bears the stamp of his genes, because there were just so many women he personally raped. War and women, they go together. We know of the genocide in East Pakistan, Bangladesh. We know how rape was a big part of it.
Yeah.
We know how rape was a big part of the pre-partition riots in India.
Yeah.
We know of that. We also know how rape was a big part of the motivation of the Japanese forces.
Yes.
In China, the rape of Nankin and the pleasure girls, the comfort girls, and all those things. We know of all these things. the animal that sits within us, that wants to fight, that wants to capture territory, is also the animal that wants to possess women. There is a clear relationship. And that has been since the day we got really conscious. It was there in the jungle and it has continued with us. And the Bhagavad Gita presents a solution to that. So the Bhagavad Gita is actually offering a solution to an eternal problem which is obviously relevant even today and will be relevant even in the future. That's the reason why I chose to teach this and why it is benefiting so many people.
I want to quote something from your book, but before I do that, very quickly, I want to ask you something, because it's a very common phrase, because we are talking about women as property, and from the time of Bhagavad Gita, and how it was what Arjuna said, and how it was in a way demolished by what the arguments that Lord Krishna gave. But ghar ki izzat, why is the onus on the women? And hence we see that women become the biggest casualty of a war, right? I mean, the whole notion of ravaging a woman becomes putting a nation down or putting a family down. How does one break those shackles of thinking that women hold all the...
By simply asking, how does one define the term honor? If honor refers to my ability to keep my women subdued in the name of safety, then two hoots to such honor. Who wants this kind of honor? And that's what has happened. A person is honorable, a father is honorable, a family is honorable, a village or a tribe is honorable if it can keep its women disciplined, in order, marry them off as per the prescribed notions, and then everything can be said to be honorable. And if anything goes astray, if a woman decides on her own, rightly, wrongly, whatever, but she has decided on her own to deviate, then it is dishonor.
Yeah.
And since it is dishonor, the answer can be honor killing. That's what we witness. So all these are very, very flawed, very violent, very ignorant notions of honor, and the real purpose of culture is to keep discarding such notions and cleansing itself from within. But instead, culture often becomes rigid and chooses to retain all the rubbish of the past. The concept of honor, also the concept of shame.
Yeah.
These are two very related notions. Haya and izzat, sharm and izzat, lajja and samman. These are honor and shame. These are related notions. And therefore, one has to take it with a pinch of salt when somebody says you are shameless. What does the word shame mean in the first place? One has to specify that.
So, I mean, I'm sure, and also, I mean, why should women bear the burden of the honor of any family or anybody else? I want to quote from your book, since we are talking about this. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, this is where, like he said, culture defines it. This is where interpretation of this for the people of today becomes very, very important. And I've quoted this, and it's on page 78. You say, Arjuna says, you see, if I fight all the Kshatriyas, like you were talking about, the men will be gone and they will be corrupted. Once again, even in this, there is this orthodox notion. How do you, completely dispel that?
By understanding that you can have no lasting pleasure or completion, fulfillment, contentment by owning anything, including a person of the other gender, that is not going to give you anything. Just that in the course of history, the principal source of energy was the physical muscle. And men happen to be more muscular in the course of evolution than women. Therefore, they acquired a more primary affair, a primary role in the state of social affairs. But that is no more the case today. There is so much energy being expended here. That's not coming from our muscles. We have alternate sources of energy. Men and women are actually equals when it comes to their contribution, their ability in the society. So these things have to be kept aside. But when there is this idea that whatever is flowing in from the past is necessarily wonderful, then that obfuscates the bare fact in front of you. Then you can't see the reality because you worship the past so much.
On that, I have a very important question. And I'm sure you will enjoy answering that. In your book, you say the Gita does not talk of an ancient war. It talks of the war right now. Do you also see how difficult it will be for you to remain with the Gita and Krishna if you have particular attitude towards women or towards caste or something else?
Definitely.
I just want to ask you, a lot of people would claim, मैं तो गीता पढ़ता हूँ रोज and I am a Hindu and so forth and I identify myself with this and that. Can people claim or hold the Gita in their hand and still have prejudice against women or anybody or any caste or creed?
No way. If 1,000 people claim to have read the Gita or understood the Gita or to be following the Gita, I would be surprised if even one of them is deserving of going beyond chapter 1. Because chapter 1 is where we are all stuck. See, Arjuna has a particular attitude towards Varna, loosely translated as caste, and Arjuna has a particular attitude towards women. And Arjuna is superstitious. He is talking of all kinds of souls and superstitions, diseased ancestors, and they will come and the dead ones are going to curse us. So there is women, there is caste, there is superstition, and there is physical attachment. These are all my blood relatives. How do I shoot arrows at them? These 4 things. People talk of following Sri Krishna, but the fact is we are all followers of the culture that dominates Arjuna. And Arjuna is very resistant to the words of Sri Krishna in the initial chapters of Gita. At one point, he actually tells Sri Krishna, why are you confusing me? Just let me go. I don't want to fight because I have my other priorities. I have my ancient notions and I don't want to give them up. So that's how we all are. Remaining in the state of Arjuna, we claim to be followers of Sri Krishna.
So we are stuck in chapter 1.
We are stuck at chapter 1. Arjuna didn't remain stuck at chapter 1. Arjuna chose to follow Krishna through the remaining 17 chapters, what came ahead. And Krishna kept on dismembering Arjuna. Krishna kept on demolishing Arjuna. And Arjuna stood through that. Most people who say they are reading the Gita, when they are demolished, when their notions are shown to be false, they just run away. That's why staying with the Gita is so very difficult. Or you can just be a hypocrite and stay with the Gita and say, well, here I am. I'm done even with chapter 18 and now I am a Pandit of the Gita, and you can claim all those things, but that's sheer hypocrisy. The real thing is when those 4 things disappear from your life. Has gender prejudice disappeared? Has caste distinction disappeared? Has superstition disappeared? Has physical attachment disappeared? If these things are disappearing from your life, only then you can claim to be really devoted to Sri Krishna or being a student of Sri Krishna. Otherwise, you're just blabbering.
So essentially, there is a difference between reading Gita and understanding Gita.
Gita has to become your life.
Exactly. Most of us who even claim that we have read Gita, we have
Gita is not literature. Gita is not literature. Gita is a mirror. You look at the mirror, and if there is a speck or blemish here, you want to change something on your face when you look at the mirror. If you look at the Gita and that doesn't result in changes in your life, then you are misusing the Gita. In some sense, that is disrespect to the Gita. Anybody who holds the Gita must be very, very ready to look within and discard all that which is unnecessary, superficial, borrowed, and therefore antithetical to life. If that is not happening, then that's disrespect to the Gita.
I think that's why they say that Gita is a way of life. It teaches you how to conduct your life. But just probing you further on this, like you said, a lot of people are just stuck on chapter 1 because of these 4 prejudices that you have, counted for us. Why don't people then understand? Why is it for them to leave chapter 1, go to chapter 2, still think that they are reading Gita, but not understand the sar of the chapter 1?
Because they do not understand that the Gita is a medicine, and all medicines are for a patient's specific disease. Right? All medicines are in that sense customized, we may say bespoke. So we do not want to see that we are Arjuna, but we want to benefit from Krishna. The thing is, Sri Krishna was not speaking to everybody on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Sri Krishna was speaking to one particular person who was revealing his insecurities, his doubts, his fears and attachments and all those things. So you have to first of all see that you are very similar to Arjuna, and only then Sri Krishna's message can be relevant to you. Because Gita is something between a Krishna and an Arjuna, right?
Yeah.
If you're not Arjuna, the Gita is not for you. So chapter 1 is actually the most important chapter for a seeker, for a student of the Gita. But chapter 1 is the one we just, flip through. Chapter 2 is when Sri Krishna starts speaking. So that's the real deal. Chapter 1, okay, fine. Fast forward. Because it opens with Dhritarashtra speaking, and there is something from Sanjay, and then even Duryodhana is there, and then Arjuna speaks. Sri Krishna is hardly found there. So we don't want to see what is there. But the fact is, all improvement is for me. Therefore, it begins with my condition. First of all, I have to have the mirror to look at myself.
Yes.
And only then improvement will ensue. But we do not look at ourselves. The way I pick up Gita is, okay, what is Sri Krishna saying? The question is, to whom? To whom are these words being said? If I do not realize that they are being said to me in my particular condition, then this remains just holy literature to be worshipped and to be kept away. This will not become life.
So I think it will start from first identifying your own flaws, identifying your own shortcomings, and then trying to seek an answer of how Sri Krishna could have helped Arjuna in that sense, and possibly identifying with that. Thank you so much for this very interesting, enlightening, and in the current context, I mean, it may seem the Gita was written in a different era altogether, but
it's very relevant. It's very relevant. It's as if it's written for us today.
Yeah. True. So in the online age also, it gives you a lot of answers of why we behave in a certain manner as we do. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
My name is Shubhangi, and I am an IT consultant, and I live in Munich for the past 8 years. And I have been listening to Acharya ji for more than 2 years on YouTube, and part of Gita sessions for roughly a year, maybe a little more. And reflecting upon the session, we were learning the 57th verse of 2nd chapter from Bhagavad Gita. And in the context, Acharya ji talked about the desire, and one of the sentences which I really liked was, the true can't be discovered by any other means but false. And the last one, which I really like but I'm yet to mull over, is you can't understand a desire and find it intact. I am yet to understand it better. That's pretty much what I learned with respect to the verse today. And in the end, what I will remember a lot is, don't just pass by, rather stop. This will stay with me. And apart from that, I've also grown particularly fond of a sentence, rather a question, tumhe kaise pata? How do you know? It makes assuming things very difficult. At the same time, it has saved me a lot of mental agony in many situations. So be thankful so far for all such teachings. And thank you.